morning and welcome to Rise and Unwind, a lifestyle show where we talk about tips, tricks, and fun activities you could do in your own neighborhood. My name's Kayla, and today we've got this.
The steps are easy, the ingredients are so easy to find. All of these recipes are familiar but have a slight delicious Mexican kick to them. And they're really designed to be stress-free. And because I'm using Eggland's Best Eggs, they're also packed with nutrition. But they make for a festive, fun Mother's Day spread.
All that and more right here on Rise and Unwind.
Some stories don't fade with time, especially when they involve trust, friendship, and betrayal. The new 3-part Hulu docuseries, Friends Like These, The Murder of Skyler Neese, revisits the 2012 disappearance of a West Virginia teenager and the shocking truth that followed. It's a story told through social media, personal interviews, and voices closest to the case. So joining us this morning are director Claire Titley and former FBI agent and polygraph examiner Dr. Rob Ambrosini. Thank you two for being here. How are you?
Thank you. Good. Thank you.
All right, Claire, what stood out to you about this case and what made you feel like it needed to be revisited now, more than a decade later?
I think one of the things that made me that was so kind of shocking about this case when I first kind of looked at it was the fact that it's 2012 and it's quite a unique era in a way for social media, because it was that era where social media was new. It was kind of a new frontier. It was the kind of Wild West though as well. And teenagers were experimenting with it. They were just putting their entire lives online. They didn't have the hindsight that we have now about kind of, you know, what could possibly go wrong. But also it was an era where adults weren't really looking at social media. So nobody was kind of checking up on them. There were no sort of checks and balances. And that makes that generation of teenagers at that kind of time particularly unique. They're almost like the guinea pigs of social media.
And the series used Skyler's own words and social media posts that you said. How did that storytelling change the ways this story unfolds for viewers?
I think it was really important to us to try and give Skyler a voice. We didn't want her to just be a kind of a plot point in a true crime, you know, where she's just the kind of victim and has no voice. We really wanted her to have agency in telling her own story, which is harder than it sounds, you know, obviously when she's gone. But she left behind this incredible sort of archive of tweets, of digital messages, but also her own writing as well. So we worked very closely with her parents to make sure that we could just bring her voice kind of front and center, and that she could at least be a part of telling this story from the inside out. So we interview her friends as well, quite comprehensively, so that we can hear this story from the 16-year-old perspective, including Skyler herself.
And Dr. Ambrosini, you spent 24 years with the FBI. You've conducted thousands of polygraph exams. When you look at this case, what role did interviewing and behavioral analysis play in getting the truth?
Well, interviewing really played a significant role. And long before I became involved in the case, the two young girls, they were interviewed by case agents, state troopers, local police investigators. And during that process, you kind of started seeing this evolution of what really should be fact, right? You know, when things are fact, it doesn't change, right? The truth is the truth, and it's always going to be the truth. But there were indications during these interviews that really did result in kind of like this evolution of their story. And of course, when that happens, you know, the logical investigation is, why is this person changing that story, right? So this case is kind of about the behavior that's exhibited, the ideation, what's going on, what are they thinking, and how are they communicating? And that really speaks to the social media that you have here, which again was kind of in its infancy stage, if you will, compared to what it is now. So really, a lot of it did come down to the really significant interviews that the investigators were doing.
And one of the most unsettling aspects is how normal these friendships appeared on the surface. How does this case reveal about the hidden conflict, especially among teenagers?
I think it's I think what we really wanted to do with this series was kind of remind people what it's like to be 16. It's very easy to forget when you become an adult, you know, and put that behind you. But about the fact that when you are that age, your brain behaves in such a way that, you know, your friends become much more important than your parents, than your family. Everything is very heightened. your reasoning is off, if you like. Your idea of consequences, is very different to that of an adult's. And when you have that combined with social media that is completely I say unregulated, but unwatched by anybody else, that's where the kind of combination was kind of so dangerous, really, I think, particularly for that generation who didn't have the hindsight that we have now.
And Claire, after someone watches all 3 episodes, what do you hope stays with them?
I hope people do reflect on their own use of sort of social media on their children, on their family as well, and remember what it's like to be that age. But also, I hope that they come away from this feeling like they know Skyler, and she would have turned 30 just a few weeks ago. So that's a life that she didn't have. And she should have gone to college. She wanted to be a lawyer. There's all this life that didn't happen. And I'd love for people to come away knowing and remembering Skyler as she was.
Hey, I want to thank you two for joining me today. Friends Like These, The Murder of Skyler Neese, with all 3 episodes available to stream now on Hulu. I want to thank you two for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what happens after you leave the biggest band in music history? For Paul McCartney, the end of the Beatles wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of a whole new chapter. Man on the Run from Oscar-winning director Morgan Neville takes us inside Paul's post-Beatles years, the launch of Wings, and a deeply personal decade that shaped his solo legacy. Morgan joins us today to talk about the film Paul McCartney, Man on the Run, which is now available on Prime Video. Welcome to the show, Morgan. How are you?
I'm very good. Good talking to you.
All right. The Beatles breakup is one of the most talked about moments in music history. What did you discover about Paul during that immediate aftermath that might surprise some of the fans out there?
I mean, so much. I mean, if you watch Get Back, Peter Jackson's kind of 8-hour version of the Beatles at the end, making Let It Be, you see Paul is driving everything. Songs are pouring out of him. And the question is, what happens the day that disappears? And what happens is that Paul has a true heartbreak. I mean, he's the one that wanted the Beatles more than anybody. And, he essentially is told by John Lennon that John wants a divorce from the band. And Paul, within 2 weeks, runs off to Scotland with his new wife, Linda, and their new baby, Mary, and tries to figure out what he's going to do. Is he even going to make music anymore? And so these next few years, he really struggles. And that's the part of the story I don't think people really understand, and that whole life of him trying to figure out who he was if he wasn't a Beatle.
So what was that period for him, creatively and personally, and him trying to find himself?
It was in some ways, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. I mean, I think, publicly, the public was angry that because they were heartbroken. So how dare you guys break up? Why can't you just be the Beatles? What are you doing? And Paul's wife, Linda, takes a lot of flack for, did she help break up the band? Same thing happened with John and Yoko. There's just a lot of kind of anger, and the critics are saying, your music isn't as good as what the Beatles were. It was kind of an impossible shadow to escape, but that's Paul's mission. He has no choice but to try and escape it. So he tries and tries different things for years to kind of see who am I and what is my voice now as just Paul McCartney. And part of that then comes into fruition when he starts the band Wings. So it's the model he knows. I'm going to be in a band with some other people, and there's a camaraderie to it that makes me feel like I'm not alone. And through that, he finally starts doing albums like Band on the Run and becomes kind of more the Paul who we know today.
And we also get to see some rare archival footage and a little bit of intimate family photography from Linda McCartney. How did those elements help you tell a more vulnerable side of Paul's story?
I mean, there's incredible footage we found. I mean, there's footage of Paul filming himself alone, writing songs at a piano, or with the kids, and the singing songs at Christmas time. There is a real intimacy to the footage. And that's really the main thing I wanted to convey, that this is a story kind of from the inside out. It's a story where we really kind of understand what Paul was dealing with and how he was dealing with it. You see an insecurity in Paul that I don't think you really see publicly.
So what do you think the story tells about resilience and reinvention?
I mean, I think it's a story, and Paul's story is how not to doubt your own creative instincts. I think, the world always wants you to doubt what you do and judge what you do. And I think Paul's strength at this time is, I'm going to do whatever the hell I feel like. And that's fine. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, fine. And he does some crazy things that work and things that don't work. He releases, Mary Had a Little Lamb as a 45, which, nobody particularly likes. But then he puts out Mull of Kintyre, which becomes the biggest selling single in England in history. So they're both kind of crazy ideas. But I think he was all about embracing the crazy idea at the time. So creatively, I think it's pretty inspirational.
And for some of the lifelong Beatle fans out there, or even some of the brand new fans that may just know Paul from today, what do you hope audiences may take away after watching Man on the Run?
I mean, I know, because everybody tells me this, when you're done watching the film, you're going to go listen to a lot of music because there's a lot of music to explore. But also just an understanding that Paul's a real person dealing with real issues that are actually pretty relatable.
Morgan, I want to thank you for joining me today. Paul McCartney, Man on the Run, is available now on Prime Video. It's an intimate look at a music icon, redefining himself in real time, and it's a must-watch for any music fan. Morgan Neville, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Great talking to you.
What if you could experience Elvis in a way you've never seen or heard before? A new cinematic event from director Baz Luhrmann brings rare footage, restored performances, and unheard recordings together in something that's not quite a documentary and not just a concert film. It's called Epic, Elvis Presley in Concert. Baz Luhrmann joins us now to talk about his new big screen experience. Baz, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, Dan, and I love the way you described it as a cinematic event, because people are having trouble to sort of say what it is. That's what it is. This weekend, 1,900 screens all over the US. Get out and have a cinematic event, because that's what we tried to do. That's what Elvis is.
And during the making of Elvis, you went searching for rumored lost concert footage, and actually found dozens of boxes that hadn't been seen in decades. What did that discovery like for you?
Oh my God! Literally, we thought we'd find a reel, and we went down to these salt mines in Kansas City where they stored negative. Bang! There's 65 boxes. And 1635, some 8mm. And Peter Jackson helps us bring it back to us to a level of quality. I mean, just get to the biggest screen you can in your town. It's in every town this weekend. Just get out there and see it, because it is actually, I've seen it enough now. People applaud during it, they dance during it. This is a movie you can really bother the other patrons, bother them with your noise and your energy, because that's what it's for.
And this isn't simply a restored concert film. You described it as almost a cinematic poem. How did you approach shaping Elvis's life story through this dreamlike concert experience?
Well, when I was working with my creative partner in this, John O'Redman, we found this one box, and in it, Elvis is just recorded, unguarded, telling you about his life story. And we said, no talking heads in this. Let's just have Elvis come to you in a dream and tell you his story really unrestricted, and music and sing along and concert moments, and he rocks out in it. Now sonically it's in 5/1. Everyone just says it sounds like it was recorded today, and the audiences are reacting like that. This is the concert, the world tour that Elvis never actually had. He dreamed of having one. He never got outside the US. As we're speaking, he's in 5,000 screens all around the world right now.
And for audiences who think they already kind of know Elvis or absolutely loved your film from 2022, what makes Epic a completely different experience on the big screen?
I go on YouTube and just see what fans are saying. They'll tell you. They're going like, I thought I knew him, and now, but it's his humor. He's so goofy. He's so disarming. And then just you see him creating the music. Like you see him take a song like Bridge Over Troubled Water, Simon and Garfunkel, and turn it into this like gospel powerhouse song. And, he's so unpredictable. And I think people are, even hardcore fans are going like, one guy said, he said it beautifully. He said, this is the film that Elvis always dreamed of making, but 50 years after his death, he's finally in it.
Baz, I want to thank you for joining me today. Epic Elvis Presley in Concert is in theaters now. You can find showtimes and tickets at your local theater and experience Elvis like never before. Baz, it's been a pleasure to have you on here, my friend.
Yes, my man, you're cool.
Reality TV families come and go, but the Robertsons somehow turned beards, duck calls, and family chaos into a cultural phenomenon. Now they're back with Duck Dynasty, The Revival, following Willie and Corey Robertson as the family grows. The kids start their own lives, and the Duck Commander legacy just keeps evolving. The new season even opens with a tribute to Phil Robertson, while the rest of the clan brings plenty of the humor that fans remember. Joining us now are Willie and Corey Robertson. Great to see you both. It's great to see the Robertson family back on TV. What made this the right time to bring everyone together again?
Well, we kind of looked up and all of our kids were back. After the show ended in 2017, we had a really busy run, so we were ready to take a little break. And then all our kids like scattered and went off to college and got married and all the things. And we looked up one day and all of our kids were here back home. We all live right there together on this little family compound, and our kids all work with us in some capacity up at Duck Commander within the warehouse. And so thought it'd be fun to kind of give the fans a little update into our life and where we are now.
When people first met your family, the kids were a lot younger. Now they're married, raising families, and starting businesses. What's it like watching the next generation step into the legacy?
Oh, man, it's been a blast. Yeah, for sure. We had, I think the main test was, do you want to be back on television? Because our kids had been on it, and so when they decided they would, we knew we didn't ruin them too bad. Well, watch them grow up, and our cast members have gotten way bigger because we have a lot more little kids and also all their spouses. And so, yeah, it's been fun watching kind of what they're going to do in life. And fortunately for us, they all ended up back here in Louisiana. And yeah, it's just been a joy. And then a lot of them have drifted to the office. And so, yeah, it's kind of, it's made for the kind of the next generation to see who's going to take it on. And, you know, I didn't take over Duck Commander until I was 30. Grew up in the business, never saw myself working here. When I was 30, that's when Corey and I came back and actually started working full-time for the company. So they're right about the age to where we were, and we're going to see who's next potentially to jump into the business.
The premiere includes a tribute to Phil Robertson. What did that mean to honor him in that way?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because the week that the actual new series started, season 1, was the week that Phil actually passed away. And so it was literally a passing of the torch from Phil and that generation down to the next. And so we just thought it'd be awesome to start out season 2 honoring him. And we see some great parts of the show on there. I mean, it's like tons of real moments. And then also we had to kind of make it Robertson, and we had some tributes to Phil, some competitions like we like to do. Just a fun way to remember him, not only for us as a family as we go through the process of healing after he's passed on, but also for all the fans who's watched him for years and have really fallen in love with Phil and what he says. And yeah, to see him start off this in this show, it really was a tribute to the whole effort of even doing it. I mean, like Corey says, when we did that episode, it just felt like this is why we needed to come back and do the show.
Yeah, it was really special. The most special part to me was having Miss Kay on there. We actually got to sit down with an interview for her, and she got to just reminisce about Phil and what his life meant to her. So it was really, really special. I was nervous for her, but she did so good. And I know that we'll all be glad, our family will be glad to have that moment and that legacy captured.
When people watch this new season, what do you hope they take away from the Robertson family today?
I think we want people to just see real life and see that, we're not perfect, nobody's perfect, but we do all come together at the end of the day, around the table. I think that moment of the original Duck Dynasty is still happening for our family. And so it's in this season as well, that moment where we come around the table together. We thank God for what we have. We thank God for our blessings, and we forgive whatever grievances we might have or whatever fights we might have throughout that episode or that week. But I just think that's really important. I think that's what resonated with people the first time around, to see a family that isn't perfect but that loves each other, and to see people who put faith at the center of our lives. And that's who we are. It's what we do. It's what we've continued to do. And we hope that resonates with people.
Yeah, and I hope that they see how important our family is to us, and how much we intentionally pour into our family to keep us together, to share meals together, to share in each other's joys and bursts, but also the struggles and, you know, when you're down. And so that's the importance of family. And that's why we made the show, is actually for other families as well, so that they can have another time to get together, spark a conversation, and just really promote family. And so our family has always stayed together through it all. And so it's so important, vital. And I think this show would help, hopefully help families get a little smile, but also remember how important family actually is.
I want to thank you two for joining me today. You can catch Duck Dynasty, the revival on A&E, with new episodes airing Saturday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern. It's also streaming on the A&E app and at anetv.com. Willie, Corey, thanks for spending a few minutes with us.
Fans of When Calls the Heart are finally getting the backstory, and it's a pretty big one. Hope Valley 1874 is now streaming, taking us to the very beginning of the town and the people who pretty much built it. We're joined by Bethany Joy Lentz and Jill Hennessy, who play two of the women at the center of it all. And it's great to have you two here. How are you?
Hi, so great to be here.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
No worries. I've heard a lot about this. A lot of my fans, or a lot of the people watching, are fans of the show. And for people that do already or are already fans of this world, what's different about seeing Hope Valley kind of at the way beginning?
Oh man, I think it's going to be so incredible, I think, for people to be able to see this town being built from the ground up. It's something. It's kind of like when you meet a new friend, when or fall in love. The more that you find out about the person that you're in love with, you go to meet their family, you go and meet their siblings, you go sit there with their mom and go through the family photo book. Like, that's what we're giving you guys a chance to do as fans of When Calls the Heart. And we really hope to do it justice.
And Bethany, your character, Rebecca, is coming into the frontier life from pretty much Chicago life. What kind of adjustment is she dealing with early on?
Well, there are several adjustments. The first being that she's been recently widowed. So trying to figure out emotionally where to place her grief while also being in this sort of emergency situation of needing to get her daughter to a safe place. And we don't know exactly why yet. Well, we know, but you're going to find out. And she's got to get across the frontier and get her daughter into a safe place in Canada. So she doesn't have a lot of time for emotional processing. And that's kind of where Hattie Quinn comes in. Jill's character, it opens up once Rebecca lands. Hattie becomes a source of stability and trust for Rebecca to actually start to learn how to soften and open up.
And yeah, she was saying, Jill, Hattie's already part of this community. How would you describe her role in shaping what Hope Valley becomes?
Wow. Well, she's Hattie Quinn runs the Trading Post, and she originally came out with her husband and very small girl at the beginning. And now her daughter is around 20 years old, but she recently lost her husband. So now she's running this Trading Post by herself with her daughter. And she is sort of the glue that holds the community together. And I think she runs it with a great sense of humor and incredible, direct, no nonsense kind of spirit, and has great connections with the whole community. But then Rebecca starts walking into town with her daughter, riding in a covered wagon. And I think Hattie identifies a woman who's very courageous and intelligent and is kind of haunted by something, and Hattie's not sure what is haunting Rebecca, but I think she also identifies a kindred spirit that she might become friends with. And I think Rebecca sort of opens Hattie up to how lonely she really feels, and a lot of feelings she's been trying to suppress just so she can get through day to day, because that's what this whole show is about. It's just these characters trying to survive every single day.
Hey, horses be walking, so it's not that big. You're not too far off.
Exactly.
All right, when people start watching now, what do you think is going to be like getting them hooked and keep them coming back each and every week?
The characters. I mean, the setting is amazing, but it's also something that they've seen before, maybe not as broken down, but we are using the When Calls the Heart sets. There are a few locations that will be new for When Calls fans. And for people who haven't watched When Calls the Heart, you don't need to. You can still jump right in and you won't miss a beat. But I would say the relationships of who the characters are there's something for everyone.
Hey, I want to thank you two for joining me today. Hope Valley 1874 is streaming now on Hallmark Plus with new episodes dropping every Thursday. You can jump in anytime to catch up. Thank you two for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mother's Day is coming up, and a lot of families are starting to think less about gifts and more about just spending time together. One of the easiest ways to do that? Food. Chef Pati Jinich is joining us with some fun, meaningful brunch ideas you can actually make at home. Hi, Pati.
Hey, thank you for having me today.
Moms say they want time together more than anything. Are families finally starting to catch on?
I think so. Yes, finally. What we want is time. We want time in the kitchen. We want time at the table. We want to cook with the people we love. We want to share meals with the people we love. And those are the things that really last. The physical gift is really not that important. And a handwritten note, that always works too.
And how can food and traditions make a meal feel more meaningful?
You know, across cultures, and I can speak more closely to Latin American cultures and, of course, Mexican homes, food is at the center of the celebration. When you combine that with spring, you're bringing the seasonal ingredients that have the bright, bold colors and flavors, the sweet mangoes, the zesty limes, fresh herbs, creamy avocados, nutritious eggplants, best eggs, and you have recipes that not only deliver, but that pass down traditions. Then you have really meaningful celebrations that are the gift that keeps on giving.
Now let's talk brunch. What are you making that people at home can try?
I have a really festive, fun Mother's Day spread. I have corn tortilla egg nests, which are like a play on eggs in a hole, but you cook the egg inside of the corn tortilla when it pops. And then you dress it with guacamole, with salsa, que es fresco, some chopped cilantro. Then I have a ham and cheese quiche with a Mexican kick of pickled jalapenos. And then to round out dessert, I have my mango key lime pie that has a creaminess from the egg yolks, and it's tropical. And then it has the crisp, crumbly crust from the crackers. And all of these recipes are not only fun and delicious, but because I'm using Eggland's best eggs, they're packed with nutrition. They have 6 times more vitamin D, 10 times more vitamin E, and 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. So you know you're making something delicious and nutritious for your family and friends.
Those look delicious. Are those recipes easy enough for someone like me who's not super experienced in the kitchen?
They are, Kayla. The steps are easy. The ingredients are so easy to find. All of these recipes are familiar but have a slight but delicious Mexican kick to them. And they're really designed to be stress-free. And because I'm using Eggland's best eggs, they're also packed with nutrition. But they make for a festive, fun Mother's Day spread.
And where can we go to find more ideas and recipes?
You can go to egglandsbest.com to find these recipes step by step and with photos for you to see what you're aiming for. And of course, you can get many more recipes and inspiration at egglandsbest.com too.
Chef Pati Jinich, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me on.
And that does it for today's episode of Rise and Unwind, aka your weekly excuse to procrastinate productively. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Truly, you could be anywhere, and yet you chose this delightful show. We appreciate that. Make sure you follow our socials at Rise Unwind, and check out the website to stay updated at riseunwindtv.com. Stay fabulous, stay curious, and stay slightly over-caffeinated, and we'll see you next week on Rise and Unwind.